Roughly 160 scores and 9 years ago, Troy burned down and some fell and Aeneas escaped. Aeneas was a noble Trojan and maybe the chief lieutenant of Hector and managed to escape as the city was being pillaged. They took some ships and set out for the Mediterranean, where they eventually ended up in Carthage. Here Aeneas seduced the queen Dido before abandoning her. She then cursed them, which totally happened and was not an invention after the Punic Wars. They then traveled on to the west coast of Rome, where they initially were met by armed locals. But their leader decided to rather make peace with the Trojans and let them intermarry with the Latins, offering his daughter Lavinia to Aeneas, which then formed an alliance. Lavinia was at the time promised to another, which led to further wars which ended with a truce, making the Tiber the dividing lines between their people. Several generations later, Rome was founded by the two twin brothers Romulus and Remus. According to the story, Romulus and Remus were born in Alba Longa to a vestigial virgin called Rhea Silvia, and their dad was the god of Mars. Sure. Due to the brothers being born to a god, and totally not just some random guy, the king at the time was obviously concerned and viewed the divine brothers as a threat to his rule. The more likely story is that as Numitor was originally king before being driven away by Amulius ordered Numitor's daughter to become a vestigial virgin to make sure she couldn't have any children. But as she was unconsensually, she had two boys and claimed that Mars was their father to save them. Either way, the king ordered them to be terminated. They were then abandoned by the river Tiber, where the god of rivers, get this, Tiberinus, saved them. Real innovative stuff. This is where they were fed by the heavy mommy milkers of a wolf, which saved them.
I won't forget what you've done for me here today.
A shepherd passed by and ended up adopting them, and over time, Romulus and Remus became natural leaders with a slew of supporters, all unknowing of their real identities. The boys enjoyed fighting the local raiders and gangs, and one time when they did this, Remus was captured and brought to the local landowner, which turned out to be none other than Numitor. Numitor, seeing the boys would be roughly the age his grandchildren should be, started to suspect that they might be his grandsons. The herdsman hearing this and, surprise surprise, also having believed this, told Romulus the story. Romulus told Remus and Numitor, they became buds and hatched a plan to put Numitor back on the throne. With Romulus leading one group and Remus another, they beat Amulius and Numitor once again became king. Instead of staying princes with Numitor, the brothers headed out to found their own city. The story of how Rome was founded is based around the two brothers having an argument either over where the city's borders were meant to end. I want it here. Well, I want it here, dude. Well, look at this wall I'm building. This wall is pathetic, dude. What even is this, my guy?
Round 1. Fight!
And another story is based around how many birds came as a sign of who had the gods on their side. 6 birds landed at Remus' side, Romulus. It's a sign from the gods that his hill is the chosen one. At least a dozen landed by my side. 6 birds? Damn. In 753 BC, something like this happened, no one really knows, and the city was founded. After the whole fratricide business, they needed to fill the city with people. And to do this, Romulus did several things. One of which was, according to some sources, to outlaw infanticide by exposure. This was actually a genuine issue at the time, sometimes due to deformities and other times slightly dumber reasons. Romulus understood that to get people to settle down, he needed something to entice settlers. He settled for just saying everyone was welcome. Criminals, beggars, freedmen, slaves, anyone, and I mean anyone was welcome. But mostly bandits. But there was one thing missing. Women. These blokes might see an opportunity for a life in Rome, but not an opportunity for straight grapefruiting. The neighboring cities didn't want their women to end up with such bandits and lowlifes as the Romans, and therefore refused to let them marry. Thankfully, the leaders worked tirelessly to come up with a solution. Get it? Date a woman?
You're ugly, you're disgusting, I'm gonna kill you.
And after countless hours, they had it. Why don't we just kidnap the women? So they did. So they held a party inviting several of the neighboring cities and tribes, and then just took the women. It's one of those plans that are so stupid that it just might work. As you might have guessed, it didn't go over smoothly with neighbors, but it led to what the Romans would soon have as a favorite pastime: war. The king of the Senonites entered Rome outraged at what had happened, met the Romans in battle, got decked, and his army was routed. Romulus then returned to Rome and created the Temple of Jupiter, offered some of the spoils of war to the gods, and celebrated Rome's first triumph. Following this, the Antonines attacked, which led to another victory for Rome and a second triumph. Then the Crustumni attacked. Same thing, no triumph though. Titus Tacitus, king of the Sabines, finally figured it out. I should probably do something. So of course, he went to war. Instead of sieging Rome, he allegedly bribed Tarpeia, the daughter of the Roman commander charged with Rome's defenses. She did this for, and I quote, what they bore on their arms, thinking she would receive golden bracelets. Instead, they crushed her and later threw her off the Capitoline Hill. Anyways, due to this betrayal, the Romans had to fight close combat in the streets, being pushed back by the Sabines until the Sabine women interfered and stopped the fighting. Which sort of makes sense. It's a hassle watching your husband trying to unalive your father and brother. This led to Romulus and Titus Tacitus to meet and make peace, and then combine their two kingdoms into one. They ruled together for several years before Titus died during a revolt at Lavinium. The revolt happened after the citizens had complained about Titus's treatment, and Romulus therefore decided not to avenge him, which may or may not have led his kingdom down the wrong path. Romulus went on to rule Rome alone and would later lead a war against and take the city of Fidenia. He did this due to the city's raiding of Roman territories. He would lure them into an ambush, routed their army, and then went inside and took the city before they could close their gates. Then another Etruscan city called the Veii started raiding the Romans. Guess who they will fight next? But with all this warring, some sort of army structure had to be in place, a structure which Romulus is credited with creating. A centuria consisted of 100 foot soldiers, and one legion consisted of 3,000 foot soldiers and 300 cavalry. I will get more into this in a later episode. He also created the Senate. Romulus established the Senate as an advisory council with the appointment of 100 of the most noble men in the community. These men he called patres, from father or head, and their descendants became the patricians. This is when the distinction between patrician and pleb first formed, where patrician was one of the original founder families, while a pleb was someone who immigrated later. But, as Mike Duncan mentioned on his podcast, The History of Rome, he's probably just giving credit for this at a later date due to insufficient records. One man being the foundation for the triumphs, army structures, senate and class divisions, it's just not likely, but rather a way of simplifying history. After his death, a cult around him emerged, which was later assimilated into the cult of Quirinus. This Quirinus fellow is alright. I'm pretty sure that's Romulus. With all that wolf stuff, that's Liam Neeson. His end is also not known for sure, but after reigning for about 37 years, he appeared in the whirlwind while inspecting some of his troops at Campus Martius. While historian Livy puts forth 3 versions of the story: 1, raised to the heavens by the god Mars, god of war; 2, torn apart by jealousy; or 3, assassinated by senators. Most seem to go with the last story.